First Tryon, our financial consultants, gave us a 13-cent tax rate in 2026 and a 16.5 cent tax rate in 2027. That was excessive, but that was for building one. I think everyone wrote in, talked, discussed it, that was way too much. Let's rework that. And so we worked backwards and set up a $9 million price tag on the building. That included the interest that Connie's been able to magically create, which helps a lot. And then it was set with 11-cent tax increase. That still brought concerns, and which I understand. And I received a lot of calls, a lot of emails, a lot of texts. I think we heard it, and that's part of our democratic process, that we're in this together, and it's not just us here, it's you. And because we pay the same taxes as you do, and we have the same concern. And so I really do appreciate your involvement, and I hope it continues as we go in the future. I think we we went back with staff, and which was great. They worked with us with Tryon, the financial advisor, and looked at the 11 cents and see what we could do with that. We squeezed the penny pretty hard, and got it down to 8 cents. And we feel that's a good compromise. It keeps us on track with the employees that we have, and the services that we provide, and what you have desired and for the future. It may be short term, and we base that on a very conservative assessment of the revaluation. We've heard that it's 75% in Hanover or Riceville Beach, and we don't know what it's going to be here. Nobody's willing to tell us. So we used a very conservative in the 30s, thinking that would be realistic, and it is, and that affects the rate that we would have. In the future, we don't know, but we're going to have to reassess it as we get better information from the county. So with that, we'll start with the public comments. Who's first?
Alex.
I'm not going to make this happen, I promise. That's okay. One page. This was written before. Okay. Alex Arab, 821 North Anderson Boulevard. First, I want to thank you for your service, and thank you for having another meeting about tax rate and budget. Sounds like this is another meeting on top of the other meeting you had earlier this week. And I've been in leadership, and there's never been a shortage of complaints. Even when it's an 80% issue, you're going to get complaints. So I don't want to be that resident. So I'm here just to make a couple suggestions. This is based on what I heard last week, so bear with me. Your consultant, I think, is missing the mark a little bit on the one-time payment from the surplus to the CIP fund. I think because they said it was because the BIS fund was an ongoing fund and CIP wasn't, and this is a one-time thing. But the reality is that the BIS fund got a one-time deficit from the money that you didn't get that we were expecting. So to me, that was a one-time event. So to me, it makes sense to move that excess into the BIS fund as a one-time catch-up. And I really like the idea of a smaller surplus because I believe it will prevent spending that may not be well thought out. Urgent is not always important. And then, just to me, the reality of the town keeping $1 million of taxpayer money while raising taxes makes no sense. And it's not spending it, it's moving it, because the BIS fund is not scheduled to be used unless you guys use it for renourishment. So to me, it's not going into the budget or things that are scheduled to be spent. With regard, the only other two things I wanted to mention was, and I'm assuming you revised the parking revenue numbers based on what we found out about May, because that was significantly more than what we were expecting when we were talking months ago. And then the last thing, again, because of some changes you may have already made, the salary survey, when you look at retention and application numbers, sounds like we're paying people well, but I think one of the other things I might recommend is exit interviews if you're not already doing them, and they may want to include a commissioner or a mayor if it's a significant position, and that's the kind of thing you can garner whether or not we're paying people properly. That was all.
Thank you.
David Kirkland.
Good morning,
Morning.
Fire Speaker, and thank you for your service. It's a unforgivable job sometimes, so.
Your name and address, please.
My name is David Kirkland, 1612 Ocean Boulevard. Okay. The question I have is, the past 3 years, prior to 2024, up to 2024, we took a 29% tax increase over the past 3 years. I'd like to know how the money is being spent on a 4-year basis. Okay, and do I need to file a Freedom of Information Act request to get that on a 9-item basis? Okay, because I'm not sure the money's being spent the way I would like to see the money spent. So I may have more questions in the future about that. Secondly, you said that you're assuming a 30% increase from Pender County. That's the number you all are working with?
A reevaluation.
Reevaluation, right? So if the reevaluation were to come in at 70%, what do you anticipate you're going to do with the tax rate, okay, in 2026?
Well, it would obviously be altered to get a neutral.
Altered
Altered.
to
Hopefully go down.
go down to 2025 levels?
We don't know until we know the rate. We can speculate. But we're not, the tax burden will remain the same to keep us afloat and keep the services intact. So it's a matter of adjusting the rate to make sure that burden is still there.
Finally, I'm not up to date on the delivery of the ladder truck. When is that going to occur?
It takes about 4 or 5 years, I think, to construct it. So we're trying to get the down payment now to get in the system. And it would take, was it 5 to 6 years? 3.5. Okay, 3.5 to 4 years to actually build and get it delivered.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have more, but there are only a couple of people that build these things.
Yeah. Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Okay, that's it. Okay, before we move on with the agenda, I'd like to amend it and have a close. Can't amend it. What I can add to it.
You can go into the session.
At that time. Okay. Okay. The intent was to go into a closed session at the end of the meeting for us. Okay, so for personnel. So now we, Doug, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We put out a packet for this meeting on Friday, but we've had some questions that have come in and some additional look at our budget. And yesterday we've made some changes. You have that new information in front of you. As was mentioned by the mayor, we have removed an additional 3 cents from the budget to get to an 8-cent overall tax rate increase. That would be 31.5 cents in the general fund, which is actually down 0.35 from last year. We are going up in the CIP fund from 1.6 to 2.0, which is the same that we presented last week, and to 2 cents. So it's up 0.4. And then we would go from 6.75 cents to 14.5 cents in the BIS, which is again what we presented last week. So the only change from last week is actually on the general fund side. So we're coming down 3 cents. And how we got there, as was mentioned, we did a salary study this spring. So we're going to scrap that and hopefully come back to that next year. There was also a request for a ninth firefighter. So we have pulled that as well, and hope to come back to that again next year. So that's how we had to make some other minor adjustments that had to do with health and COLA and merit based on if the salaries were implemented versus whether or not. So those were all adjusted. Actually, I've got a couple of bullet points here. Let me make sure I'm reading off that. So we saved about $100,000 on the firefighter. If you include benefits included in that, it was about $145,000 that we saved by not implementing the salary study implementation. We have increased our tax collection percentage rate from 98.5 to 99%. As you know, I've been talking about that since I got here, because we've never been below 99.25%, I believe, in the last dozen years. So we did increase some revenues in building permits from 50,000 to 53,567.53 in order to make it the budget balance. And our total that we presented in the last meeting last week was $6,007,027.20 for the general fund. It's now $5,796,603 and $5 million. Ooh, that's a big reduction. $5,796,603 and 28 cents, a difference of $210,416.92. As mentioned, we go from 34.5 down to 31.5. And yeah, so actually, if Rochelle, if you could put that slide up on the screen, just to give you all a general idea. If you owned a house that's valued at $750,000, the current tax rate is 40 cents, so your bill would be about $3,000. With this tax rate increase, it's an additional $600 or about $50 a month.
Any questions for Doug? I know we did shift out of the reserve fund $500,000.
Correct.
And that left us a little over 50 or 60% left in there. And with the uncertainty of FEMA, we don't know what's going to happen. And if we dropped it to the 100,000, we'd end up with 277,000 in reserve. I can't live with that. I think one storm event, and it's not if we have a storm event, it's when. And if we're not prepared and we're not sitting in a good position, all bets are off. I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I just think we need to protect ourselves.
And just to clarify, if I could, it's $727,000 there, not $1 million.
Oh.
727,000, that's after we moved out, so 500,000.
The 727,000 is in the capital reserve, not the fund balance.
Okay, gotcha.
And that is after moving the 500,000 to CIP, correct?
That's correct.
And in the last 8 years, we've used $300,000 out of that fund.
The last 8 years, we've not had a major storm.
In the last 8 years, we haven't taken one penny out of that reserve for any storm funding, and we've had storms and events in the last 8 years. It's tax dollars that will continue to sit there while we tax our residents.
Mayor, we need to get a motion on the table before we start
Before
discussing.
you go there, you know, Connie shared with me last week, we had a year where we did have an emergency and we spent down to the bare bones. And it's kind of like all of y'all in here, I said, all of y'all are right.
To get back in touch with you.
Chazo, can you mute your mic?
All of y'all had savings. I was able to be glorified and buy a new air conditioner compressor this year, new windows, and we're halfway through the year. So the surprises living at the beach keep coming. I don't pay my bills out of savings, and I don't think y'all want the town to. You want us to have that for emergencies. And because of the position the town was in, correct me if I'm wrong, Connie, that year they set a policy on having money set aside in a capital reserve fund. So we had something if you got a major spend. And I just think that's financial prudence, and it's kind of our fiduciary responsibility to y'all to have money for an emergency. HOAs, they come do a big old assessment. We can't do that.
If I may, Mayor, to add to Commissioner Thomas's comments, so the commissioners have in front of them a packet, the residents here don't, but some of you may remember that back in 2015, we actually had 156%, but we spent it down, I think it was for Irene. But anyway, down to 3%. And we got a letter, which again, they all have in front of them from the LGC about our spending. And so in 2016, I believe it was when Mike Rose first got here, the town implemented a policy of 50%. So again, as far as staff is concerned, we follow policy unless the board changes the policy. So that's our policy, and that's what a lot of other beach towns do. I did a survey on Friday with several beach towns, and I can share it on the screen if you'd like, but I'll just read them out. Ocean Isle Beach has a policy of 80%. They just implemented that in March. Holden Beach doesn't actually have a policy, but they carry anywhere between 40 and 70%. Let's see, Southport has a policy of 55%, but carries 80%. Surf City carries 81%. And there are other towns that responded to my survey that vary. Pender County, the county, not a beach town, has a policy of 25%, but carries 50 to 65%. And it's specifically because of hurricanes that they keep it that high. And there's some other notes from some of the different towns. But I put out a little survey on that on Friday.
And that 50% is basically 6 months of town's overhead.
That's correct.
Liken it to a family's budget, you got set aside 6 months of your living expenses in case somebody loses a job or you got an illness or your air compressor goes out.
That's a question to the town manager.
Sure.
Why are we having, in this budget, $500,000 to remodel this building? And do you have, estimates for what's going to be repaired in the next 12 months with this budget for this building?
So we were asked to put $500,000 in there, and so we did. And
Asked by who?
by the mayor. Okay. And so
Placeholder.
I'm asking, what's your $500,000
So,
allocated to in the next 12 months?
And we've already provided those estimates that we got during the public safety building, because one of the questions was, what if we were to renovate this building? And so we got a couple of different estimates. And they ranged anywhere from, I think it was $250,000 to $450,000 is what the estimates that we got.
And that did not include if we had new community development into this, right?
Had nothing to do with community development.
So what is the $500,000 allocated for?
For renovation of this building.
And you have nothing specific that we would, that we're going to have to renovate to use those funds?
Yes, we have it in the estimates that we gave to you all back during the public safety building meetings. It includes roof, windows, insulation, HVAC systems,
And all of that has to be done in the
mold
next,
remediation. Thank you, Tom.
do you believe all that has to be done in the next 12 months and none of it can be deferred to the future?
We could look at that. I haven't even gone down that path at this point. We're just trying to get a budget approved for this year.
You also have $500,000 in the CIP fund for, our new buildings. You just approved the budget for $9 million, but also budgeting an additional $400,000 for that.
That's correct. You all voted on this in a previous board meeting where we said we're going to need to come up with an additional $400,000 in order to make it 9 million. Because based on the money that we have plus the investments, this was a voted on item in a previous board meeting.
And you're okay with the parking revenue projection?
I'm a little bit concerned with it, but yes, I'm hoping we hit those marks.
Could you tell me, is that 50,000 for Warden Smith that we pay? Is that for the shoreline protection? Is that our percentage?
Topsail Beach pays a third, Surf City pays a third. and
There's 50,000 there. Sorry, I wasn't at the meeting yesterday, so I didn't know what you and what you reviewed or looked at and considered reducing. And I didn't get any information on it until now, what was not at that meeting. So I'm going through every page. I don't see anything for the alcohol beverage. Is there a reason why we're not anticipating revenues that we've received over $17,000 over this year?
Because we were told by Pender County when they constructed their building that we might be cut back some on the funds, so we did not allocate any.
So that
But we've
building
been
opened up.
fortunate to have getting checks, yes, sir.
So that building is opened up and we received $17,000 this year, but we haven't budgeted any revenue coming from them.
That's correct. Being conservative, because they told us don't expect it.
That was until their building was built. Their building is built and open. It was open 3 months ago. Have you talked to them since?
Have you talked to them? No.
Our goal was to move to a full-time fire department. Was any discussions on a volunteer fire department?
No.
We have a full-time fire department now with 8 firemen, and if we have done nothing with our volunteer fire department.
I'm not sure.
As far as reducing our volunteer fire department or even entertaining reducing our volunteer fire department.
Specifically, no. But do we have volunteer firemen? Yes, we do. Do we pay, no?
I know all that. I just
Okay.
wanted to see if we looked at that because our goal was to go to a full-time fire department.
Right, but we don't want to release volunteers if we're not even sure we're going to get the full-time firemen to take their place. So that's why we didn't cut back on any volunteers, if that's what you're asking.
I'll make a second.
With that,
Please wait. I'm just, please wait. Okay, please wait.
That's all the questions I have.
if Bo, would you like to, if you could take that, please?
Answer your question on the volunteers. The State of North Carolina requires us to have a minimum of 15 firefighters on our roster in order to have a fire department. You go below 15, you do not have a fire department, and you go to a 9S on insurance. So the volunteers will have to stay basically until we get 15 full-time firefighters. We don't have a fire department.
So we need 15, 8 full, so can we have 8 full-time and 7 volunteers? Does that, yeah, does that meet the 15?
Well, that would meet 15, but
All I need to know.
you don't know out of, right now we got 14 and we average about 6 on each call. They're out doing other jobs. They're
Right.
having to come from the mainland. And so then you get back to where if they don't show up on a call, enough of them, then your ISO is going to go up again because you didn't put enough firefighters on the scene for that one call.
So you think our firefighter, our volunteer fire department that lives mostly off island get here before the Surf City Fire Department gets here?
No, sir. I don't.
So Surf City arrives before our volunteers?
As long as they're not out on another call. Yes. If they're out on another call, then their volunteers are gonna get here.
So that dual coverage, does that count to the 15?
Yes, sir. But no, Surf City, no, sir. You have to have 15 registered on your roster.
Okay.
Has to be your roster.
And how many volunteers do we have right now? You said
13.
13.
How many live on island?
2.
Two.
Yep, we have 2.
If there are no additional questions or discussions, let's have a motion.
Mayor, I move, to adopt the budget ordinance in town of Topsail Beach for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, ending June 30, 2026. This will include approving a tax rate for fiscal year 25-26 at 48 cents per $100 valuation, with 31.5 cents to the general fund, 14.5 cents to the BIS fund, and 2 cents to the CIP fund.
Have a motion to have a second.
Second.
Further discussion? Let's have a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Me. Nine. 4-1. 2.
Thank you.
Oh, 3-2. All right. And I hear the voice. 3-2. Passes. Okay. Okay, now we go, we've got our last thing, I'd like to go into closed session and then we'll adjourn the meeting, so.
Mayor, I move that we go to a closed session for general statute 143, 318.11, A6, to discuss a personal matter related to the budget.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Do you gonna go through and let everybody make comments they want to, like it usually goes on?
If there wasn't any people.
No, the measure. Big one, everyone.
Comment.
So this is my first budget negotiation.
Fun, isn't it?
And I've learned a great deal. And one of the most important things I've learned is how much everyone at this table, that table, everyone in our town cares so deeply about everything that goes on in this town, including budget. And I want to commend everyone behind these 1, 2, 3, 4 tables, as well as public comments on a great job everyone's done to get us down to 8 cents. My comment would be that I interviewed with 4 of you for an appointment to this board, and all 4 of you recommended that if I was serious about the appointment, that I should also be serious about running for re-election this fall. And I would always try to do what is in the best interest of our town in line with filing for re-election. Those two should be hand in hand, should not be opposed to each other. And for that reason, my first budget, I couldn't vote for a 20% tax increase. I respect everything we've done through the process, making the sausage to get this budget. I don't feel like I'm at odds with my commissioners. So I commend you again on the process. I've learned a lot. And I'm not hoping for a 75% reavow from Pender County, but I think things will look much different next year, and the budget process will look different as well. So I look forward to that.
Just to say you're never at odds. When they disagree, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's the democratic way.
Thank you.
Did you just sign up for re-election?
I guess I did.
Anyone else have any comments? Okay, let's go back.
Just want to say thank you to the residents. You know, your voice matters. I think the mayor has told you, we've listened to you and heard you. This has been a very challenging process. I think we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to our staff, to Doug, to Connie, Christina, Rose, Rochelle, to Bo, to Sam. They have gone back and back to the drawing board. It has not been fun for them. It got elongated because you can't really do a budget till you know the cost of the building you're going to build, and that got elongated as well. Once again, listening to the residents and trying to respond to what you need. This is hard, and my background is finance, and I live on a fixed income, had a lot of surprises. And I think our town does an amazing job of making sure we keep sufficient funds for emergencies without hoarding money that could be used for other things. I don't think there's anybody in this room that would want to have Connie's job. So, if I thought we could lower further, I would be all for it. I told y'all last meeting, we have to have a tax increase. And I think where we got to was from carefully our staff threading the needle to get there. So, and I'd also like to say, when I was interviewed, they didn't ask if I would run. But thank you all.
And you left off Tom.
Oh, I didn't see Tom sitting back there. Tom, you too.
And Craig, I'd just like to make one additional comment about the meeting with Ryan yesterday. Most of y'all are interested in all that's going on the public safety building and that we decided certainly not to do option one and go to a much lower figure. And about a month ago, Nancy and I signed to work along with Frank, town staff, and the office people to try and come up with what would be suitable at that much lower figure, somewhere around $9 million. We had our first actual face-to-face meeting yesterday. I think there's been a lot of background work. And I walked away from that meeting yesterday feeling very good that we're going to be able to do what you've asked us to do in terms of slimming down and providing what the police and fire and the town as a whole need in this building. We're going to get there. It's going to take a while, and we promise to keep you informed about what's going on. We don't have any details to show you yet, except that the attitude yesterday was very positive that we can get there. It'll take some work, but the construction people are committed to doing what we've asked them to do. We're committed to doing what you've asked us to do. So we're going to get there. It's going to work out.
And it won't look like that first rendering. There'll be something you'll like.
I think it will. Okay, additional comments or discussion? Okay, we have a motion, a second on the floor to go into closed session. All in favor? None. We go into closed
Thank you all.
session. Closed session.
Thank you all.
We'll get a minute. Get a minute.
That's
All right.
Goodbye for